Welcome back to the Fireside Chats podcast, where we talk about different issues surrounding the metro Atlanta area. My name is Emma, and I will be the host of this week's episode. In this episode, we'll be introducing you to the Atlanta Public School cheating scandal, and we'll be telling you a little bit more about its repercussions on the subsequent funding of Atlanta public schools. First, we'll hear from Mei Ling, who will tell us a little bit more about the facts, what happened, and why.
Let's dive into a bit of the history of the scandal. Even though the verdict was determined in 2015, the cheating scandal happened almost 11 years ago, starting in the December of 2008. The state of Georgia suspected that something was off after Atlanta schools went from underperforming to being one of the best performing school districts in the span of only 1 year. The odds of such leaps in scores are less than 1 in a billion. There was also a big discrepancy with test score ranges. While many test score ranges show drastic increases, others show drastic drops. Let's look at a specific case. In 2010, fourth graders in Toomer Elementary School scored the highest in the state for English language arts. Their scores were so high that no other schools was within 14 points of their score. But in 2011, the same group of students, now fifth graders, had an average test score of 58 points lower than the previous year. These suspicions led the state to perform an investigation of 44 public schools in Atlanta, and 80 educators confessed to cheating. You might be thinking to yourself, why they do this? Why did the teachers and principals of these schools risk their entire career to falsify information for the students on state tests? Well, the pressure came from the superintendent, who wanted to see student test score increases, and she also promised bonuses for student score increases. In Atlanta, teachers can get bonuses of up to $2,000 if their students meet state test score standards. Investigators of the incident stated that the superintendent, Beverly Halls, created an environment of fear for the teachers, which allowed the cheating to continue for a long time.
And now, a brief word from the sponsor of our episode, Britton Dining Hall. Have you ever thought about switching to a burrito-only diet? Have you ever wanted to trek up a quarter-mile hill in 95-degree heat just to eat in a dimly lit, mildly air-conditioned abandoned church? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you're in for a treat. Now, for a limited time only, you can mention the code FIRESIDE20 to be 20% more annoying to everybody else in line. Come to Britton Dining Hall today. Britton Dining Hall, because you have 3 more meal swipes left. Now back to regular programming. Arch will tell us a little bit more about how the scandal still affects the community of Atlanta today.
Welcome back to the Fireside Chat. We will now be going over the reverberating repercussions of the Atlanta public school cheating scandal. We will look at the effects of the cheating scandal in 2 ways. The effect on the children swept up by the cheating scandal, and the financial implications on the funding of the Atlanta public schools after the scandal. Let's begin with the impact that the cheating scandal had on the students. Going back as far as 2001, children from elementary to middle schools were affected by the cheating scandal, causing much pressure on them. Christian Birch, a student who was implicated by the cheating scandal, told AJC journalist Vanessa McCrae that the cheating scandal has caused her more emotional trauma than academic toll. She felt as if she was robbed of the extra help that she needed if they did not receive those phony test scores. Atlanta Public Schools has tried to fix the effects with the creation of Target 2021, an organization created to help students who were involved in the cheating scandal, but that program has no effect, as there's been a 12% decrease in attendance rate, a 4% decrease in the 9th grade EOC scores, and an average of a 20-point decrease in the PSAT reading section. Now moving on to the financial repercussions of the scandal that continue to reverberate in Atlanta Public Schools today. As of this past year, Atlanta Public School has spent $7.5 million on Target 2021, but it has shown minimal impact on the students that it has affected. The amount of money spent on this program could be used to help provide funding for 625 additional students at the schools implicated by the cheating scandals. Also, in addition to the drainage of the funding from the general budget to fund Target 2021, the cheating scandal has caused a decrease in the overall federal funding that Atlanta Public School now receives. The year after the cheating scandal emerged, Atlanta Public Schools' federal funding decreased by nearly 17% the first year and 18% the following year. It had accounted to over more than a $30 million decrease in federal school funding over the span of 2 years after the scandal. That amounts to nearly $500,000 of lost funding for every school in the district. You know how much impact that could make. The subsequent impact of the funding has amounted to a total decrease in 19% of funding as of today. Nevertheless, the lasting impact of the Atlanta public school cheating scandal continues to play an impact on the children and on the schools implicated by corporate and personal greed.
Today, we talked about the Atlanta public school cheating scandal. We started off by letting Mei Ling fill you in with a little background information, and Arch told us a little bit more about what happened after the scandal. So, why do we tell you all of this? In Georgia, the pay gap between teachers and similar college graduates was 25.4%, which is the 9th largest in the country, and 47% of teachers leave the profession within 5 years. Performance-based pay was proposed as a solution to combat this, but since school performance is largely dependent on factors outside the classroom, teachers have no jurisdiction over this. The reality is that this cheating scandal isn't just about one local incident of teachers putting their own agenda over the well-being of their students. This reflects the larger issue with national implications. It's no secret that public school teachers are not paid adequately. In fact, the National Education Association reports that the national average starting teacher salary was just $39,000 for the 2017-2018 school year, and Georgia's average is $4,000 short of that at $35,000. It's important that this story of the cheating scandal that occurred in Atlanta is not seen as an example of greedy teachers in a dysfunctional school district, but as a disturbing wake-up call to address the epidemic in America where public school teachers are forced to pay for their own school materials and sacrifice their own livelihoods to fuel this performance-based industry. Thank you for listening to this week's installment of the Fireside Chats podcast. Next week, we will be interviewing our very own Jimmy Carter for a special 95th birthday podcast episode. This podcast was made possible through the generous contribution of Mr. George P. Burdell.